Today's lesson is on estimating length. Before we begin, we need to figure out what the word estimate means and what the word length means. So to estimate means to guess. And today we're going to be guessing or figuring out just how long something is. That leads us to the next word, which is length. And length is how long something is. Okay, we are going to look at quite a few different objects to see how long they are. When we're doing that, we have to use certain units of measurement. And the units we're going to use today is an inch, feet, and yard. Okay, the smallest measure is the inch, then feet or foot, and the yard. Okay, there are 12 inches in 1 foot. There are 3 feet in 1 yard. Okay. So an inch is the smallest unit of measure that we're going to use today. We're going to look at some items today about inches, feet, and yards. And the first item we're going to look at is a paper clip. So we all know what paper clips are, okay? And today I have a little blue paper clip. This blue paper clip is about an inch, okay? When we put 12 of these paper clips together, and maybe we would line them up along the edge of this paper. We line them up on the edge of the paper. About 12 of these paper clips is going to make 1 foot. 1 foot is about the length of this paper, okay? There are other pictures that we can look at that are going to show us what things are measured in inches, feet, and yards, okay? So let's take a look at some of those now. We're going to start with the inch. This shows us a picture of 4 items that are going to be an inch long or wide. I'm sure everybody's seen a whistle that a referee blows, okay? A whistle is about an inch. I already showed you guys my handy dandy paper clip. That's an inch. A snap cube, the blocks that we use at school that we can link together, those are an inch. Then we have our knuckle, just from here to here, which is about an inch. Okay. Some people's hands might be a little bit bigger. So those are the things that would be an inch. Okay. Now, let's take a look at things that are measured in feet. Things that are measured in feet. A standard ruler is a foot. A ruler is about the length of a paper. From your elbow to your fingers can be about a foot. For me, since I'm a grown-up, it's about from my elbow to my wrist. Okay, so from here where my arm bends, here to my wrist. That's about a foot. Then we have the length of a book. Some of our books are bigger. Some of them are smaller. So the length of a textbook from school is about a foot. And then they say a man's foot is about a foot. Some men's feet are bigger than a foot. Some men's feet are smaller. Okay? Now let's look at something that's a yard. Something that is a yard. So a yard, remember, is the biggest measurement out of the three that we're talking about today. These are items that are measured in a yard. Okay? Remember, a yard is 3 feet or 36 inches. So it would be 3 rulers, 3 pieces of paper put together. That would be a yard. The distance from your nose to the end of your finger, from here to here, is approximately a yard. A locker, if your school has lockers, they're about a yard. Anyone who watches football, anytime we're talking about measurements in football, it's by the yard. So halfway down a football field is 50 yards. 50 yards. Your backyard is measured in yards. So if you have a big backyard, maybe it goes back 50 yards or 100 yards. If you have a smaller backyard, maybe it's 10 yards. Okay, so we measure large things and large spaces in yards. If we would measure something like a football field in inches, it would take a very long time. We measured every single inch. That's why we measure large things with the bigger measurement. Now we're going to look at some problems that are going to help us to estimate length of certain items. Some of these we've already talked about. The first object is a paintbrush. This right here is actually a paintbrush. Okay? Are we going to measure a paintbrush in the smallest measurement, the middle size measurement, or the largest measurement? We would measure it in inches. And if we think back to how many inches we think it would be, maybe let's look at our paperclip. How many paper clips do you think would make up the length of a paintbrush? About maybe 6. So we could put 6 inches for a paintbrush. The next picture is the picture of a chalkboard. A lot of us don't have chalkboards anymore. A lot of us have whiteboards, but it's the same. They're the same size, okay? So would we use something like a paper clip to measure the length of a chalkboard? Would we use feet to measure the length of a chalkboard? Or would we use yards to measure the length of a chalkboard? Let's think about that one. And think about the size. We know we definitely don't want to use inches. Too small. And it would take us forever. A foot would take us quite a bit of time too. So remember, this is the size of a foot. Put 3 of these together. That's a yard. A yard, remember, is the distance from my nose to my finger. Okay? So what would we use? I would say we'd use a yard. How many yards? My guess would be 2. As you guys can hear, I'm using the word guess. Remember, we are estimating. So if we are estimating, that means we are guessing. Okay? Number 3 is the picture of a door. It's the bottom of the door, not the side of the door. So it's not going to tell us how tall the door is. This is going to be how wide the door is. Are we going to use inches? Again, measuring with a paper clip. Would we be doing something like that, measuring with a paper clip? Would we be using a foot, piece of paper, or would we be using something as long as a yard from here to here? If we were to guess, I would say a foot. How many feet? 2. Okay, 2 feet. As soon as we would say 3 feet, what would happen? 3 feet would become 1 yard. And the last picture. The last picture is a picture of a saw. It's a handsaw. Okay. And handsaws are used to cut wood. Would we use inches to measure a handsaw? No. Remember, 12 inches is a foot. So we'd convert it to feet or change it to feet right away. Okay. Would it be a foot? That saw be about as big as a piece of paper? Or would we use a yard? From my nose to my finger. Nose to my finger. 3 feet. A 3-foot saw may be hard to use. So a saw that was 1 yard would be difficult to use. So I would say we would use a foot. And I would guess it would be about 1 foot. Okay. So let's take a look back here at the top. We've talked about inches. We've talked about yards. And we've talked about feet. 12 inches makes 1 foot. 3 feet makes 1 yard. 12 inches makes 1 foot. So let's go from small to large. 12 inches, 1 foot. 3 feet, 1 yard. 36 inches is 1 yard. And whenever we are looking at items, we need to decide what we're going to use to measure them with. We need to estimate, are we going to use inches? Are we going to use feet? Or are we going to use yards? So today's lesson was about estimating length. To estimate means to guess. And the units of length that we are using today were inches, feet, and yards.